Thanks, David, and good morning. I just wanted to start my recap by mentioning an event that had a profound impact on us this year. In January, I got a call with the worst possible news, that we'd had a fatality on our Linfield construction site. The loss of Graham Rabbits was devastating for his family and for everyone connected with him. We've never had a workplace fatality before, and we're determined to do everything we can as a team to make sure it never happens again. Of course, moments like this make you realise that despite the best efforts, the best things that you do, there are always things that you can do better. And we've already made a lot of improvements across the company, most particularly in construction. Graham's family told me that they were determined that his loss is not in vain, and we will make sure of that. And in fact, we're doing quite a lot of work with Graham's father, Selwyn, as we speak. I'd also like to add to David's comments about Kevin. Kevin had great instincts about leadership and finding the right people. He realised you couldn't achieve anything on your own. He had a saying which was recruit above the line, and there's great stories in the company about Kevin turning up to, say, a village manager's office, taking the whiteboard from the wall, walking up to the whiteboard and just drawing a line, and then explaining that that is the line of your best people and all your recruitment should be above that line because that's how you get better. And if you can't find the right person, never compromise, keep on looking. We love Kev's saying, and we train people about it right to this day, along with a whole lot of other, we call them Kevisms. On a personal note, Kevin has been a great sounding board for me and for the entire senior team. We cannot thank him enough, and we wish him all the best. As David touched on it, it's been another solid year. The two numbers that stand out for me are that at the end of the year, we had less than 1% of our portfolio available for resale, and our care centres were 97% full compared to the industry average of 87%. When you think about the fact that the real estate market volumes dropped 14% in the year in New Zealand, and yet our resale volumes lifted 15%, you'd have to say that Debbie McClure, our Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, and the team have done a great job, outperforming the volume change in the market by nearly 30%. These numbers stand out because they are a great indicator of the demand that we are seeing. We gained momentum everywhere in the business, and that is set to continue. The other highlight has been the feedback we're getting from our people. Every single survey result is lifted this year, which shows that our residents, their families and our staff are happier than ever. So when I became CEO in July, I had a huge amount of visits around our portfolio. I've visited 30 villages, I've visited our 7 construction sites, quite a few of the different locations I've been to a number of times, and look, I've met hundreds of residents, staff, family members, fellow Romanians, subcontractors, and had lots of good chats about how we are doing, how we're performing, what can we do better. And so it's always reassuring when you get good survey results in that it does actually bear a resemblance to what you're seeing on the ground. And certainly from what I've seen on the ground, we're providing a great environment and great care to our residents. We've invested heavily in staff through extra training, leadership programs and pay increases, and improved entitlements, most particularly for staff at villages. Behind the scenes, we've been reorganising, and we've been busy recruiting in Melbourne, Auckland and in Christchurch. We've more than doubled our design and development teams in Christchurch, who also do work for the Victorian market, and we have ramped up our teams in Auckland and in Melbourne. The point of all this recruitment is to double the rate at which we are rolling out villages so that we match the New Zealand growth rate in Victoria. This year has been the first year of Ryman Delicious, and it's been a huge hit. Look at that food. That's pretty good, eh? We've introduced seasonal menus and choice. Residents who dine with us can pick from 3 options every day from their main meal, including a vegetarian option. Now, this was actually a big and complex operational change and highlighted the value of our chefs and their teams who cook more than 10,000 meals fresh on site every day. Paul, who's our head chef at Anthony Wilding and a recent prize winner, says it is like running his own a la carte restaurant. The runaway favourites with residents and Gordon MacLeod so far salmon fillets, pork belly and beef cheeks. And of course, you can't beat the traditional roast. For the first time, we've introduced a structured leadership program. As part of making sure that we are very deliberate about how we grow our own people and preserve our culture. We can't leave it to chance. More than 200 of the company's leaders have already taken part in the Ryman Leap program. The feedback has been very positive about the days and the study that's done and how it's been so well tailored for our people. So there's no generic content in it, it's purely been designed for people who work at Ryman. And so our People and Technology Officer, Nicole Forster, and her leadership development team have done a great job of developing Leap from scratch and getting it going really fast. Our biggest ever investment in improving care systems is in full swing. This time last year we had no villages live on MyRyman. Now we have 25 villages live on MyRyman Care app, and the rollout in New Zealand is due to complete this year, ahead of schedule, which I've been sort of secretly told is July, but I'm not supposed to say. And it's amazing really for a technology project. How many do you read about that come in on time? And remember, this is rolling out a completely revolutionised way of running a care floor across thousands of people and for nursing and clinical practices that have hardly changed in 30 or 40 years. So the training and development teams and of course the system itself has just been superb. So practically we've installed more than 2,000 tablet devices in residents' rooms, and we've trained 2,100 nurses and caregivers on the system so far. I've sat in on a few of those training days, and thankfully I'm not in charge of actually operating the system, but I've sort of got a fairly good idea how it works. And the responses in the room when people get shown the functionality and how it works is amazing. And you'd normally expect that sort of thing to occur over a few days, wouldn't you? Well, the sessions that give people their core training as a group take one session of an hour to introduce it, and then another session of about 2 hours just to solidify that training, and then it's all out in the field, and people just take to it straight away because it's so user-friendly. So care plans are now all stored in MyRyman and can be accessed via the tablet in the resident's room. Our staff can see at a glance everything they need to know about each resident and what they need to do to care for them. So we get feedback from caregivers, for example, that it's great to have very systemised reminders in MyRyman in the room saying that perhaps someone has some red skin under a fold or something, they need certain ointment treatment. And it's just really reassuring for everyone to know that that's being literally checked off live on the system every single day, and how the resident likes to be handled and looked after during those sort of protocols. In most healthcare settings, the information you'll find on clipboards, sometimes hung over the end of a bed, paper file, often somewhere which no one quite knows where it is, or on desktops back at the nurses' station. Our clinical team thought that MyRyman had great potential, but they've been blown away by how successful it has actually been, and we're now starting to show it more and more to family members to help them understand the complexities with mum and dad, how we're looking after them, the activities that they're going to, making sure the attention to daily tasks and all that sort of thing is all there, and people have been really, really impressed. So we've talked about MyRyman for a long time. Since July last year, the rollout team, though, has made that dream a reality. I'd like to offer my thanks to that team, and it's actually been quite fun from my perspective to watch operations, who are sort of like nurses principally, and the technology team, who are principally sort of young guys in their 20s often, becoming BFFs. They're actually working together as a really cohesive team and it's been fantastic, and that's why we're getting good outcomes, good teamwork. At the same time, we've been achieving better clinical outcomes as well. 18 of our villages now have 4-year certification in terms of New Zealand, which is the gold standard of approval from the Ministry of Health. I'm hopeful actually that we will have another 2 shortly. One of those ones had an amazing 7 continuous improvements awarded to them in their recent audit just a couple of weeks ago. In Australia, Weary Dunlop has been re-accredited, I think it was on Thursday or Wednesday this week, with 0 findings. So again, whether it's in New Zealand or Australia, the clinical outcomes are fantastic. Our clinical quality though, and the constant innovation, you have to say, is a real testament to the positive leadership of Barbara Rainin-Rose, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and also to her Deputy Liz Dilger, who's worked for us for many, many years as well, and of course the whole operations team. I spoke with one of their people, Karen Lake, the other day, just about some of the success they were having, and she very simply said to me that what she loves and what her team love is being part of something which is successful and where they can be creative. So they love the opportunity within operations that they can be creative and taking things to another level all the time. So on to AAA. For more than 10 years we've been running fitness classes for our residents aimed at keeping them active for longer. Each week thousands of residents take part in our AAA classes. And this year we won official recognition for our work when we received accreditation from ACC for their Live Stronger for Longer program. Our residents love the classes, and that's why so many attend, and it's great to get the official stamp of approval for the work that the team have put in. I want to just take a bit of time now to update you on our expansion in Victoria. We're building up the Victorian team, as I mentioned, and there's a lot going on. We're delighted to announce today that we have bought our 8th site in Victoria. It is a 1-hectare site in Aberfeldy in northwest Melbourne. Aberfeldy is just 9 k's from the CBD. You can see the CBD in the foreground to that photo. And it is an established suburb which is home to a number of excellent schools, making it a sought-after area for families. The site has everything we look for. It is a short distance, in fact actually literally a stone's throw, from a local supermarket and also a local retail precinct. There's an ageing population in the wider area, which includes Essendon and Moonee Ponds, and there's a shortage of retirement options in the area. Our first residents are due to move into their new apartments at our Brandon Park village in the next couple of months. The village has been named after Australia's favourite opera diva, Dame Nellie Melba. It is the biggest investment we've ever made in a village, and it will be similar in scale to Eben Hillary in Auckland. And in fact, it's so important to the village that we recruited our village manager several months ago to make sure they were Romanianised as much as possible before that village opens. It's fair to say there's been a big gap between our first and second villages in Melbourne. And we've learned a lot from this, not least of which is that we actually needed more resources on the ground. And in design and development, whether that be in Christchurch or in Melbourne, in the early phases particularly, so that we're able to do more things in parallel. So we've learned that lesson. And the other lesson we've learned is that Brandon Park actually took quite a long time to get started after the development approval was gained, because in Australia what happens is that rather than a building consent for each individual building that you get, they basically consent the whole site and every single building. And perhaps in some of the smaller councils there, that's just a huge amount of work to do actually for such a large scale development. So we're learning now to get ahead of that and get into councils earlier to have those sort of discussions about how that could work. In January this year, we secured consent to begin work on a new village in Coburg. In fact, I was at the hearing that night with Andrew and the development team, and it received, I think it was unanimous approval from the local council after a significant community consultation process, hearing everybody's views. and our construction team will be underway on site later in the year. This village includes 5 multi-storey buildings, and the team is working hard on the detailed construction drawings at the moment. And look, you can see by looking at it, it's a more complex build because of the extensive basement work required. It's a higher level than perhaps most of the ones we've done previously, and we're targeting our first residents to arrive probably actually in 2020 by the time we get all the basement stuff done and all that sort of thing. And by the way, it's next door to the Coburg Lions, who we sponsor. The next cab off the rank is our Burwood East Village, which is in East Melbourne. We hope to secure planning permission soon, and assuming that is the case, I'd really hope we could be starting to work there later this year. Obviously, it's subject to development approval, but we're in very advanced discussions regarding that. Following closely on Burwood East's heels is our Geelong Village. In fact, the board, we went to Geelong just a few weeks ago. It's really beautiful, actually. The highway's a bit barren, isn't it, between Melbourne and Geelong? But Geelong's really beautiful. And it's in the suburb of Highton, and it's close to a large shopping centre. The village is a townhouse scheme, which will be our first in Victoria, and we're well advanced in our discussions with the local council and also the community, and we hope to be building on site in the next few months, again subject to development approval. We have 2 villages planned for the Morning Peninsula, which is really popular with Melbourne's retired community. We've recently held open days for the Mount Eliza site that we've talked about in the past, with the local community and various stakeholders to consult about our plans and what we're thinking, and that's important work to do ahead of the application for development approval. Our second site on the peninsula is at Mount Martha. We're still consulting and working through the design phase, and probably realistically the target would be to submit something later this year or perhaps more into next year. So that's Victoria. There's actually a lot going on, isn't there? Just to recap, we've got 1 village open, we've got 1 about to open, and all going well, we should be able to start at 3 additional sites this year, and 1 of those 3 is already consented. Collectively, all 8 villages have the potential to be home to more than 4,000 Victorians, and you can see we have a huge amount of momentum building as we look to match the New Zealand rollout rate in Victoria. And look, they're all great sites. Andrew Mitchell, our Chief Development Officer, and his team have done a fantastic job in finding them and shepherding them through the design, the consultation and the consenting processes to date. I'd also like to pay thanks to Tom Brownrigg, who's our Chief Construction Officer, and in fact his whole team. They've been working very hard in New Zealand, as you'll hear about in a minute, as well as preparing for this very significant lift in the build rate in Victoria that we have ahead of us. So we've also been busy in New Zealand, of course, and our new Logan Campbell village in Green Lane has welcomed its first residents. I was actually there on the day, and the residents that I met were just thrilled, actually, really thrilled with the teamwork between construction and operations and sales to make the experience really good. And one of the chaps told me, he said he actually had very high expectations that it would be beautiful when he moved in, but he was actually quite emotional about the fact that it was far better than he thought it was going to be, which is quite humbling, actually. Him and his wife were just thrilled, actually. We've got 100 residents there already, and we open the doors in February. The teams at Devonport and Linfield are now well into their construction programs, and pre-sales have continued to be strong. In fact, at the Devonport site, Matt Hutchinson has built a little deck so that kids in the area can come and watch behind Perspex some of the diggers in action, which has gone down a treat. I've had cards from children aged 1.5 and 2.5, because you don't do halves at school now. You do it to 1 decimal place. So we're hoping to welcome our first residents at those 2 sites again later in the year. The next villages to go through our community consultation and consenting process in Auckland will be Lincoln Road and Hobsonville. I'm also really pleased to be able to share with you today that we have received consent for our new village on River Road in Hamilton, and early works are underway. And that site is an absolute stunner. We have recently bought new sites in Karori in Wellington and in Havelock North. The Karori site was formerly a Victoria University campus and is a site that we have had our eyes on for many years, so we were delighted to secure it. We had a very positive response from local residents at the recent community drop-in days that we held on the campus, not last week, or in the last 2 weeks anyway. Yeah. We've also secured an excellent site in Havelock North, which is also announced today. It is an area that is popular with retirees, and there's a real shortage of care in the area. And you know, when I think about all the sites that we have just walked through, and there's a fair few that we've just discussed, I think about actually the various visits that I do to sites, our villages, our communities during the year, and you meet people that are dealing with really difficult things personally with their husband or wife. Perhaps one has got dementia or health things have changed for them and they're struggling, and the support that they proactively come and tell you about, which they receive from our staff, is amazing to hear actually. And of course lots of people too that are just so relieved to not be at home anymore, to be able to relax and enjoy life. So when I think about all these sites, you can look at them on the screen there and go, okay, that's a nice bit of land in a good community, and that's important. But the thing that really motivates us is that our mission is to make sure that the sort of Ryman care philosophy that David has talked about, the culture that's so important to us, is that we're able to get into as many communities as we can so that people can experience life in a Ryman village, and we see that as our mission really. That's what we must do. So when I reflect on the year that's been, I feel we are building great momentum across the board, whether that be in delivering great care for our residents, developing our team of people, investing in better care systems, or really scaling up in Victoria. And look, we've got an amazing opportunity ahead and a great team of people, and we are only just getting started. And on a personal note, I feel I owe Kevin a lot. I really want to repay the faith that he has put in me since I joined the company in 2007. I feel very honoured to continue Kevin's legacy at Ryman, and I'm going to strive to preserve the culture that he created at this company, because it is a privilege to look after older people, and I want to continue that culture that Kevin created. So thank you for your time. I'd like to hand over to Dave Bennett, our CFO, but I should just say that this is Dave's first year as a CFO of a publicly listed company, and he's doing an absolutely fantastic job. He's got my full confidence. He's a hell of a lot better than the last CFO too. It's just a big step up actually. And if we just perhaps roll over one more slide, just to sort of leave you with a smile on your face before David talks about the numbers. We've been doing a bit of parasailing with our residents at our Jane Mander village. And the lady on the left there, Dorothy, guess how old she is? She's parasailing at 250 metres up, being towed behind a boat. She's 100 years old. And her friend Irma is 88. The group we took out on the boat that day had a combined age of 522 years. So I love seeing stuff like that coming through on our internal Yammer network, because it's inspiring when you meet people who are making the most of life and really enjoying it, and that we're able to do everything we can to make that happen for them. So thank you very much.